Hello everyone and welcome to today's Friday Live Q&A on the final day of February. It's February 28th. Can you believe that already? Already we are almost in March and the beginning of what we would call autumn or fall is rapidly approaching. Still really beautiful and warm here in Melbourne, so we're still in the final days of summer, but it is final day of February. Crazy. Now, sorry, I know I'm a little late today. I went overtime with the client, and then I'm in the process of upgrading my Mac. I've got a brand new Mac here, and I'm moving everything across, and so I just had a few technical difficulties. So I'm on my old Mac right now, but I've got this magnificent new computer waiting for me to use. StreamYard just wasn't the live streaming service I used. Just wasn't. Just didn't want to play with the new Mac yet. So my apologies for that. But I am now live here with you guys on Facebook and YouTube. So if you have just tuned in, and I know it takes a little while for the feed to filter through to let you know I'm here, please, as always, let me know where you're listening from. Say hi. Always love to hear where people are listening from in the world. And as always, I will be answering any questions that you have. And I obviously draw on those things. I draw on what I share with you based on what's showing up in my client work and obviously with my relatable students this past week. I didn't run my relatable call on Monday because I was coming back from this amazing ride through the high country, as we call it here. And it was absolutely extraordinary what the experience I had with my daughter last weekend. We rode all the way through the Alpine region and up to the top of Mount Sterling and down, which is where, if anyone has seen the film The Man from Snowy River, where most of that film was shot in, and it was a long time ago now. I watched it as a little girl and always wanted to ride through there. So we had the most incredible time. And so I didn't run my relatable call on Monday because of that, but I did run the Wednesday call. So I've got things that I want to draw from that and share with you guys that I think you might find really helpful today. And as always, I've got the questions that have been sent through to me. So if you are listening live and you have a question, just pop it in the comments below and I will answer it for you. The first thing I do want to say is a number of you have said to me, what's going on with your book feed? When's that launching? So just in terms of my book, this book here, Funny Little Human, Transform the Way You See Yourselves and the Ones You Love. It was meant to launch last night, but the proof copy had a number of changes, unexpected changes that have taken quite a while to process. So that is still in the stages of getting right. And I don't want to rush this. I want to make sure that it's right when it goes out to you guys. And I'm sure we're at the tail end of all of that. It's gone back and forth a few times, and there's just a couple of small changes for me to make to sign off on, and then we'll be moving forward from there. So I've delayed launch. Launch now is officially, and this date will not change, but the book is launching on Thursday, March the 13th. Okay, so I'm going to create a Facebook event, which you will all find out more about shortly, and make that announcement there. And those of you who are on the wait list for my book, so if you want to join the waitlist for my book, you can find out. It will probably go live a couple of days before then, but on the waitlist, you'll get early access to links, a couple of bonus things I'm doing for people on the waitlist. And also, if you want to buy a signed copy, which a number of people have asked me about, I'll have a very limited number of signed copies available for you to buy, but you'll only be able to buy them if you're on my waitlist. I'm only going to do 20, and I've already had at least 12 people say to me that they want them, which, I mean, it feels a bit, I don't know. I feel funny even saying that someone wants a book with my signature on it. I mean, it just sounds crazy, but anyway, people do, so, which I think is wonderful. So if you want a signed copy, I'll have a limited number of those, but you can only get them if you're on my wait list. So the wait list for the book, for those of you who don't know it, is Fiona Lukeis.com. I'm just going to put here /book. That's how you can join the wait list. If you go to that link, you'll, it'll all work out from there. Thank you for saying hi, everybody. Hi, Penny. Thank you for saying hi. Appreciate that. And Andrew, hi, Andrew. Nice to see you on here, Andrew, and nice to hear from you. It's really lovely to have you here. And Nathan, hello, beautiful Nathan. Thank you. I love the way you put #live. Yes, if you are watching the replay of this, please put replay live, #replay live. It really helps me to know how many people are watching the recordings and how helpful that is. It's really helpful to me. Hi, Craig. Oh, you joined the waitlist last night. Okay, awesome. Okay, perfect. So most of my communicating will go via there. I'll share what I can through social media. But that's the best place if you want to know more about when the book's launching, which for those of you who just signed in is now March 13. That will not change. That is the definite date that it's launching. I'm going to do 2 launches, one on Thursday, March 13, which will be at around 6:30 at night. And I know that's not great for the American and Canadian peeps. So I will also do another one for you on my Friday live the next day, which is better time for you guys. All right. But I'll be announcing this via the waitlist and social media. Hey, Bronwyn, thank you for saying #live. Love it. Really appreciate it. And anyone else out there who wants to say hi, please let me know. I have finally recovered from the 16 hours I spent in the saddle last weekend. I was very sore, and it's taken me a little while to get over it, I've got to say. I was sore in places I never realized I could get sore in, to be perfectly honest. But it was an amazing experience. Riding through that alpine high country is just extraordinary. It is incredibly, incredibly steep. I had no comprehension of how steep it would be. And there were definitely, in full transparency, moments where I just closed my eyes, especially when we were going downhill, and just hoped for the best, because the horses were picking their way through loose rocks, really steep terrain with loose rolling rocks rolling around their hooves. I mean, how they didn't fall was amazing. Amazing horses. So highly recommend doing it. If those of you who are wondering, I went through a trail riding company. There's no way the horse my daughter and I use would have coped with that. These horses are bred to do that kind of stuff really well and highly trained. It was through people called the McCormicks. They've been running trail rides through that area for 33 years. And I think it's called, I've forgotten the name. I'll remember the name. I think it's called Mountain Valley Trail Rides, actually. But if you Google the McCormick's Mountain Valley Trail Rides, you'll see it. Some of their rides are booked out 3 years in advance. That's how popular they are and how well they do it. Hi, Juliet. Thank you so much for saying hi. I really appreciate that. And you're on YouTube. Awesome. It's good to know someone's listening out there in YouTube land. So thank you. Really appreciate that. And like I said, if you have a question, pop it in the comments below. If you're listening live, I will make sure you get taken care of. In saying that, I'm going to come to a couple of questions that were sent through to me this week. All right, so sorry, I'm just bringing this up. My assistant has been sick all week, so I've been trying to do, and she normally puts these into a document for me, but I haven't had a chance to do it. Here it is. All right, so all right. Hi, Fiona. Thank you so much for these Friday lives. I've just come across your work and I've been binge listening to them, and I'm finding them so incredibly helpful. My mind feels quieter and I feel lighter. Awesome. That is so fantastic. I've read your ebook and I can't wait for your book to come out. Okay, beautiful. But I do have a question over something that my partner and I get stuck on quite often. I feel as though my partner and I are speaking different languages when we try to communicate. I say one thing, they hear another, and suddenly we're arguing about something that wasn't even the issue. How can we communicate better so we stop misunderstanding each other? Okay, great question. Fantastic question. And a question that comes up a lot, right? People feel like they're on opposite planets. Now, there's a very good reason for why this is the case, and no, it's got nothing to do with gender. Okay, so let's take gender out of it. The problem with going, I'm not saying there's not differences between men and women. There are, but the problem when we go down the gender pathway is we stop being curious. Okay, and curiosity is very, very, very important in a relationship. I mean, it's very important in life anyway, but when it comes to communicating and communicating well, you have got to be super curious. Now, when we tend to go, oh, it's because men are like this and women are like this, when we tend to look down that pathway, we get stuck with that label and we stop being curious. Oh, you know what men are like. Oh, you know what women are like. Oh, we're just this. And the curiosity ends, doesn't it? Right? Now, when you stop being curious, the problem that occurs from there is you start operating out of an assumption. And assumptions are very dangerous things, very dangerous things. And they are often the cause of relationship breakdowns. They really are, because people don't realize that they're operating out of an assumption. And when we're operating out of an assumption, we stop listening. We think we know what the answer is. We think we know that something about someone that's not necessarily the case. We stop being curious. Our minds retract. They're not open. And a mind that retracts, especially in communication, blocks connection, blocks listening, and blocks an opportunity for there to be a different way to understand. So, one of the biggest problems that I see in relationship issues is people are very rigid in their thinking. They get very married to their reality. They operate off an assumption and they stop being curious. Okay. And this is how it can feel like you are having what I would call emotional ping pong. We're all saying one thing, your partner is saying another, or the other person, doesn't have to be a partner, it could be a child, a colleague, a friend, family member, and you're just firing shots at each other. It's just playing ping pong, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? And of course, nothing lands. There's no shift. There's no change in understanding. It's just who can win the next point. And of course, when you get to that point, what happens is people don't feel good around each other anymore, right? We don't feel good around each other. And when you stop feeling good, you don't want to spend time with each other. You can't be bothered working something out. You're resentful. It feels like, can you see what I mean? Can you see how it can just rapidly decay, I guess? And yeah, I'm trying to think of a better word, but yeah, really decays or erode. And so all of a sudden, it can feel like you're on opposite planets. It literally does feel like you're speaking different languages. And so, in order to change that, and one person can do this, I really want you to know this. One person can do this. This is the amazing power that the individual has. Okay. And I want you to feel empowered around this, because so often when we feel like we're on opposite planets, so two people speaking two different languages, people feel disempowered. And when we feel disempowered, we tend to kind of stick to what we know. We're in a lot. We're less emotionally intelligent, and we are often in what I would call a lot of insecure thinking, and that just creates more conflict. It creates less understanding, and people stop listening. So, oh, hi, Julie. I just saw your comment. Love listening to your replays. I get so much out of them. Thank you. This is the first time listening live whilst I do my housework. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Juliet. I really, really appreciate it. I really do. Hey, Sandy. Oh, it's good to see you too, honey. I actually started recording you a message today, but I've been interrupted. So you will get a message from me at some point today. I just want you to know I haven't forgotten you. Hi, Mick. Hello. Always lovely to see you, Mick. Always. Okay, so I'm coming back to the question that was read out to me. And basically, for those of you who've just joined, this lady sent a question in saying, I feel like my partner and I are speaking different languages when we try to communicate. I say one thing, they hear another, and suddenly we're arguing about something that wasn't ever even the issue. How can we communicate better? so we stop misunderstanding each other. So, and I just want to say that it's such a common thing. So first thing I want to say is that one person can absolutely change this dynamic, but there are some things that you need to be able to bring to the table. All right. Now, it's a good thing to learn these things because these are skills, understandings, and insights that you'll take with you in every aspect of your life. All right. And this is what my clients and my relatable students will report back, saying, what I've learned here, I take into work, or I've taken it dealing with a situation with a sibling or a parent or a child, or, a big decision that I've had to make. So it's not that what you're learning just applies to one thing. It's applicable across the board. And I think that's what's so wonderful about learning this understanding. All right, because you'll take it with you everywhere you go, and it has such an enormous ability to impact the level of well-being that you live from for the rest of your life, no matter what you're dealing with. And life is always bringing us things for us to deal with, right? That's life. Life is a contact sport, and there's always something. It's not personal, but it's just life being life. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, or the second thing, the first thing is one person can make a massive difference here, but there's some things that you need to bring to the table, and I'll address those in a minute. But the other thing that I want to say is, one of the reasons it can feel like you are speaking different languages with someone is because people live in separate realities. Okay, people live in separate realities, and I do talk about this in my book, which is coming on March 13th now. All right, official launch day for that is March 13th. But people live in separate realities. And so what that means is people are just not seeing the world the way you are. Now, if you're not curious enough about understanding how someone else sees the world, it can feel like you're having a conversation, or you can be literally having a conversation with yourself. Okay. And that's why I can feel like you can have a conversation, but it's kind of going like this, where you're just missing each other completely. And that's because you haven't taken into account someone else's reality, and you haven't gotten curious enough to step out of your own and to step into theirs. Now, in order to step into somebody else's reality, there's a couple of things you have to know how to do. You have to be a really good listener. Really good. Most people are not great listeners. I have a whole module where I teach listening inside of Relatable, because this is an area that people fall down around time and time and time again, because we've never been taught to deeply listen. And one of the reasons why we're not great listeners is because our minds are so busy, and our very, very busy mind gets in the way. And that's the only thing that we hear. Things like, yeah, but I don't agree with that, or but I would never say that, or that's ridiculous, I didn't mean that, or whatever it is, or but you never listen to me, or you don't understand me, or you've got all of this noise going on in your head. And when there's all this mental noise, there isn't any room to listen, or our capacity or ability to listen disappears. And so most people overestimate their ability to listen well. Most people will say, I think I'm a good listener. But really, when push comes to shove, they're not. And when I'm working with couples, and I was working with a couple this week, and it was really interesting, actually. She actually said to me, we were talking about listening, and she said, I think I'm I'm a good listener. I think I'm a better listener than my husband. And I was like, okay, cool, no worries. And anyway, they were sitting with me. We were sitting together, so they came and saw me in person. And her husband brought something up, and she immediately got defensive. She immediately said, no, that's not what I meant, or you don't do X, Y, Z. I won't go into the whole thing. And I looked at her and I said, how well do you think you're listening right now? I'm just curious for yourself. And she sat really quietly and she said, wow, I'm actually not listening at all. And she said, and I do that a lot. I don't actually sit and listen. I jump in and override. I didn't realize I was even doing that. And I do that a lot. And she went, okay. I've got some things I need to learn about that. Like, kudos to her that that she recognized that within herself, and she had the humility to admit that and accept that and want to do better. So there's a couple of things. Number one, people live in separate realities, and you've got to be curious about someone else's reality. You have to be. You've got to be a good listener. You've got to be a good listener. And a good listener is quite neutral. A good listener is not someone who's got something where they have anything they've got to defend or hide or justify, right? So this is why the other aspect of these things is you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. So your relationship with yourself needs to be strong. See, when I'm comfortable in my own skin, when my relationship with myself is strong, I don't feel the need to defend myself or justify myself or explain myself. I'm just like, okay, I can sit there because I'm comfortable enough in my own skin where I can go, okay, well, we're seeing things really differently. That's interesting. I wonder what it is I can do to understand another person, versus when I get defensive, when I'm not so comfortable in my own skin, I get defensive and I go, why do you always say that? I didn't mean that. This is just so typical of you, blah, blah. And I'm in that kind of blame, defensive, judgment-filled space, which is where people go to very quickly, especially a couple who are struggling, right? There's not the goodwill. They're not giving each other the benefit of the doubt. They're not curious. They're not listening, and they're operating off an assumption. And this is dangerous territory to be in, because when that starts happening, people stop feeling emotionally safe. So then they stop sharing with one another, right? They stop sharing, which means they stop communicating. They withhold, they get quiet, and they're either talking to somebody else about stuff, or they're just pushing it down, ignoring it, and keeping themselves busy, right? Or scrolling on social media, that kind of stuff. So, if you feel that you are speaking different languages, the greatest thing you can do to change that is this: shift the way that you're showing up first. Remember, everything starts with you. Shift the way that you're showing up first. So what does that mean? It means getting comfortable in your own skin. It means really learning how to get over yourself. It means learning how to be a good listener. It's developing a sense of curiosity about someone. It's recognizing when you're coming from a place of assumption. These are all the things I cover in my Relatable program, by the way, so that you're aware of what you're generating and bringing to the table. Now, as you get better at getting over yourself, being more comfortable in your own skin, listening really well, right, coming from a neutral place, getting curious, you start creating emotional safety, right? Now, as you create emotional safety, that enables the other person to relax, because they're no longer on tenterhooks waiting for the next kind of disagreement or judgy comment or a feeling of having to defend themselves. It gives them time to relax, right? Now, when they relax, they get access to better thinking, which makes them more emotionally intelligent. And then when we feel that way, we become more generous. So generosity, emotional generosity, is really important. When I'm in a good feeling, I will feel emotionally generous. So what does that mean? So someone who's emotionally generous might hear an edge in someone else's voice and not call them on it. Someone who's feeling emotionally generous might look at someone and say, wow, I can really see they're struggling with this conversation, and be more empathetic and understanding. Someone who's feeling emotionally generous is not making something about them. They're more interested in the other person. So, we want to be in a state where we're bringing a lot of emotional generosity. All right. Even when it looks like you're on opposite planets, so to speak. Even when it looks like you don't agree. Even when it looks like that person's reality is so far removed from yours that they're on Mars and you're in Jupiter. Okay. So that your capacity to see that will have a profound effect. Profound effect on another person, and a profound effect on yourself. one of the things my relatable students say to me all the time is, I cannot believe how differently I show up. I cannot believe how much better I am at holding space, at listening, at handling my emotions and somebody else's. And I cannot believe the ripple effect that is bringing to my life and everyone and everything in it. And there's such an amazing feeling when you're able to do that. I know for me, I had always wanted to show up in a more grounded, connected, calmer state of mind. And no matter what I had tried, and I'd studied many different things, I never managed to get an enormous amount of roadway, I guess, into that. I kept reverting back to this defensive, frustrated, someone who wasn't state of mind, someone who wasn't very good at listening. And knowing that I can show up that way, that I can get over myself quickly, that I can listen, I can be curious, and I can generate understanding. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm not, and I'm not even trying to be. It is such an amazing feeling to know that I can do that. It's an amazing feeling. Okay, so there's some comments here. No worries. Thank you so much, Sandy. All good, Nathan. I get it. Thank you so much for even commenting. I really appreciate that. Sending all the good things. Nathan Holmes is one of the students in my Relatable program, and he's just a gorgeous, gorgeous soul. Deezer is another one. Sandy, Mick. Hi, Deezer. When my husband says that I'm not listening, I now know that I'm not listening. I know, it's funny, isn't it? Thanks, Fiona. And this is the whole thing, right? That's what Deezer has just said is gold, in the sense of, if my husband says something like that to me, and that's one of the reasons why I've called my book Funny Little Human, is because I hold myself in so much more lightly. I don't even know if that's grammatically correct, what I just said. There's so much more lightness around the way I hold myself. So even if my husband was to say to me, Fee, you're not listening to me, I just don't take it personally. I don't take things anywhere near as personally. I'm not as defensive. I'm kind of like, sometimes I'll laugh and I go, you know what, you're right, babe. I didn't listen to a word you just said. Okay, would you mind saying that again? Whereas without this understanding, I would have gotten defensive about that, because I had my own insecurities and stuff going on that I would have led with. So it's just so freeing. I guess that's a word. It's just so freeing when that's not my go-to, to be defensive or take something personally or see it as an attack or feel like I need to do. I've got something to defend or hide. It is just so freeing. So I love that. Thanks, Deezer. Grand Sunset. Hi, Fiona. From Olympia, WA. I just love Relatable. It's been a wonderful blessing and gift in my life. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm not sure who Grand Sunset is, but you're so welcome. I'm just so thrilled to know that that you feel that way, and thank you for being a part of Relatable. I don't know your it's Jody. Okay. Hey, Jody. Yes, thank you, honey. I get it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hi, Daniel. I see so many of these habits that I portrayed. It's amazing you don't see them at the time until you point it out. Yeah, I know. Thank you for that, Daniel. I so appreciate it. Daniel's also in my Relatable program. Well, I think one of the things we have to understand is that we are our own biggest blind spot. We just are. We're our own biggest blind spot. There are so many things within ourselves that we can't see. And you've got to understand, you can't change what you can't see, right? You can't create meaningful change around the things that you can't see around yourself. And it's not that you've got to do this big, deep psychological deep dive, but it's so freeing when you see it. Oh, wow, I'm a terrible listener. Well, great. Now I get to change that. Or, wow, I seem to take things really personally. I want to change that. Or, I'm overthinking. I'm a big overthinker. I want to change that. And you are able to, through this understanding, you get to see that, it's like the invisible becomes visible. And then you get to see it in a way where you're not judging and blaming and all of those things of yourself. You're actually able to see it through a lens of love and grace and humility, where it's not like I'm this terrible person because I'm not listening. It's like I've just been given the gift of awareness that's helping me see myself better in a way that means I've got more choice around how I want to show up. It is a big belief of mine, and I've seen enough clients now and students over the years that those people, and we all do it, right? The biggest struggle a human being has is navigating their own emotions. Okay, it's one of our biggest struggles, and mastering that, or learning how to deal with that well, is I think one of the greatest gifts we can bring to ourselves and the people around us. Okay, a human being who navigates their own emotional state well is a wonderful person to be around. They are. They're generous of heart, mind, and spirit. They're a lot calmer. They're loving. There's just so much more of them on offer. To me, that is one of those things that we need to make it a mission that we do well, because to me, that's how we end up being great parents, great friends, great leaders. I mean, it just ripples out into so many places. People who navigate their emotional state well just do better in general in life, in every single way, and have an amazing ripple effect on the people around them. And so to me, this is just so fundamentally important. If you're someone who doesn't navigate your emotions well, I really would encourage you to make this, what's the word, like a non-negotiable in your life, that this is something that you learn, master, and understand, because it is totally possible. It really is. I honestly think, based on where I was, if I can do it, anyone can do it. I was such an angry overthinker. It's probably a good way to put it. An angry overthinker, and I really didn't want to show up that way, but I kind of almost felt stuck. I felt like I'm just, this is just the way I am. And I want you to know, even if you're thinking that is not true. That is not true. It is not the way you are. I promise you that. We are not our personality. We are not our thinking. We are not our past. And there is so much more on offer on the other side of that when you start to really see that for yourself. Juliet, lol, it is not easy to do housework and listen attentively at the same time. How many things can I be present with at one time? Great question. I guess that's a very individual thing, Juliet. Thanks for sharing. I love it. Hey, Kirsten. Good morning. Nice to see you, honey, as always. Hey, Lisa, angry overthinker here. Yeah, I think a few people can relate to that. Like, I just find it hilarious. I do. We're so funny, and I love the fact that I can laugh at myself. I have a sense of humor with my frailties and my husband's. Like, I just hold myself so much more lightly. It's just it's a beautiful way to be in the world. So I just, in closing with this fantastic question that this person has sent through, if you really want to change that, if it feels like you and whoever the other person is, right, you can apply this to anybody, are speaking different languages, that you're on opposite planets. Just recognize that you live in separate realities. And so one of the things you've got to get good at is being curious about another person's reality. No two people see the world the same way. They just don't. And the biggest mistake we make is we are having a conversation expecting and thinking that the other person is seeing things the way we do, right? That is such a massive problem, because that is not what's happening in reality, okay? It's a hard thing to get your head around, or it can be confronting to hear initially, but we are making this stuff up. Our reality is a made-up thing. Like, my reality is made up. Your reality is made up. And that's based on a whole number of things, which, again, I talk about in more depth in Relatable. But, your reality is not the reality. There is no the reality, okay? There's just different ways of viewing things. And if you can truly understand that, and again, I really do go into this in a much deeper level in Relatable, then your ability to navigate somebody else's reality is completely different. Instead of projecting your reality onto them and getting upset because they don't see things the way you do, you've got to be able to get over yourself, listen, get curious, and stop operating out of an assumption. And when you're comfortable in your own skin, you get really good at doing those things. All right. And from there, You help another person feel understood. Because really, you know, when communication breaks down, people stop feeling seen, and people want to be seen. We all want to be seen. We all want to be seen. Now, the greatest way to feel seen is by someone stepping out of their reality and into yours and deeply listening. Greatest gift we can give someone, but it's the one thing we struggle with the most. Hey, Karen. Hello, beautiful. Thank you for saying hi. Good morning to you, honey. Good morning. Good morning. Lisa, I drew closer to God and found peace rather than expecting my partner to give me peace. Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. I love it. That's wonderful. Yes. When we can generate our own peace and stop expecting it from someone else, there's so much freedom around that. So I love it. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Well, I've got to go, but I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for your fantastic question. And if anybody wants to have a chat with me about finding out more about Relatable, I'll put a link in the comments. If you want to join the waitlist for my book, it is launching on March the 13th. Check the comments. I've put a link to joining the waitlist there. There's lots of different things, lots of information and extra bonuses, etc. by joining that. So I highly recommend joining my waitlist. If you have a question that you want me to answer, please send it to hello@fionalukeis.com.au, and I will answer that for you next Friday. Sending you all loads and loads of love, everybody, and I will see you next week when it is March. Crazy March. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care now. See you soon. Bye.